Have you ever had to step in someone else's shoes? Someone you deeply respected, and suddenly carry the weight of an entire mission on your shoulders? That's exactly where we meet Joshua. He wasn't just a warrior, he wasn't just Moses' assistant. Joshua was the chosen successor to one of the most legendary figures in biblical history. And right from the start, God makes it clear, as I was with Moses, so I will be with you. Be strong and courageous. Joshua chapter 1 verse 5 through 6. This wasn't just a casual statement. It was a divine confirmation, a passing of the torch, and a call to leadership. God repeated those words over and over. Do not be afraid. Be strong and courageous. Because the truth is, Joshua would need it. He was called to lead an entire nation into hostile territory. He was expected to win wars without lifting a sword, sometimes just with marching and praise. He was asked to take bold steps of faith again and again, not because it would be easy, but because God was with him. And maybe that's the word for us today. God doesn't just show up in the victory. He shows up in the fear, in the silence, in the assignment you don't feel qualified for. Sometimes your promotion starts with the weight of responsibility. Sometimes the scariest moments are the exact places God calls you to lead others. In this series, we'll walk you through Joshua's journey, from the moment he receives God's call, to the unbelievable victories like Jericho, to hard lessons like the defeat at Ai, to the legacy he leaves behind, one of radical obedience and unwavering courage. But through it all, you see something unshakable. God keeps his word. And when you trust him fully, he gives you strength for the battle and peace in the pressure. Moses was gone. The weight of leadership fell squarely on Joshua's shoulders. And before he even had a chance to get comfortable in his new position, God gave him a powerful charge. As I was with Moses, so I will be with you. I will never leave you nor forsake you. Be strong and courageous. Joshua chapter 1 verse 5 through 6. It was as if God knew Joshua's internal battle, because he did. God repeated the same command multiple times. Be strong and courageous. Not once, but over and over. Why? Because when you're chosen for something big, fear tries to whisper that you're not enough. But God doesn't call us because we're ready. He calls us because he is faithful. Joshua's first major moment as a leader wasn't a war. It was a miracle. The Israelites had to cross the Jordan River at flood stage, and God told Joshua to have the priests carry the Ark of the Covenant, the visible symbol of God's presence, into the water first. As soon as the priest who carried the ark of the Lord set foot in the Jordan, its water stood up in a heap. Joshua chapter 3 verse 15 through 16. Why? Because God was making a statement, not just to Israel, but to their enemies. He was showing everyone watching, this is my chosen leader. Just like I split the Red Sea for Moses, I will make the Jordan stand still for Joshua. Then and now, when God needs the credit, there are times in your life when God will intentionally put you in a situation that requires a miracle, not because He wants to watch you struggle, but because He wants the people to know this isn't her, this isn't him, this is me. Sometimes even your enemies need to see that God is the one backing you up, that the doors opening for you aren't just about your education, experience, or hustle. It's His hand, and He's using your obedience to show off His glory. Have you ever had a moment like that? Maybe God told you to apply for something way out of your league, or stay quiet when you wanted to defend yourself, or move first before the promise even showed up. God will let you step into flood waters just to show you He can hold them back. Hidden gold. The art had to go first. Obedience had to lead the way. The people had to step before they saw the miracle. And maybe that's what God is requiring from you right now. He's not waiting on your strength. He's waiting on your yes. And don't miss this. The moment the people crossed, God told them to build a memorial of 12 stones. Why? So they would never forget what He did. And so they can tell their children that God is the one who brings us through impossible places. And when God held back the Jordan River and the Ark of the Covenant crossed on dry land, it wasn't just about helping Israel. It was God showing the surrounding nations that He was with them. He didn't want the spotlight on Joshua. He wanted the glory for Himself. Today, I will begin to exalt you in the eyes of all Israel, so they may know that I am with you as I was with Moses. Joshua chapter 3, verse 7. Even your enemies need to know who's backing you. And sometimes the only way for them to see that is when God parts waters that no man can move. Because before Jericho fell, God reminded Joshua who was in charge. Joshua met a commander of the Lord's army and fell to the ground in worship. The angel told him, "Take off your sandals, for the place where you are standing is holy." Just like Moses at the burning bush, this was God saying, "I'm with you, but this is my battle." Then came the strangest battle plan in history. March silently, blow trumpets, carry the ark, and shout on the seventh day. No weapons, no ladders, no logical reason this should work. But obedience releases miracles. Hidden gold. God doesn't just want to show up in your life. He wants to show off His glory, not just to your friends, but to your enemies too. That's why it had to be done this way. If they had taken Jericho by sword, they'll be praised. But when the walls fell by worship, only God got the glory. You may not see it yet, but every quiet step of obedience is cracking the foundation of something you thought would never fall. Before the first trumpet sounded, mercy already moved. Rahab, a prostitute, hid the Israelite spies. She told them, "The Lord your God is God in heaven above and on the earth below." Joshua chapter 2, verse 11. She believed before she saw proof, and because of her faith, her entire household was saved. But here's the part that many miss. Rahab didn't just survive Jericho. She became part of the bloodline of Jesus. Matthew chapter 1 verse 5 tells us that she was the mother of Boaz, the ancestor of David and Jesus himself. Then and now, God didn't just save Rahab. He honored her forever. She had a past, but she also had a purpose. Your history doesn't cancel your destiny when your faith is real. Then and now, sometimes God tells you to circle the same thing over and over. The addiction, the job hunt, the broken relationships, the silent days where you see no change. And then he says, shout. Your victory won't be because you're loud. It'll be because you trusted him long enough to finish what he started. When the walls fell, it wasn't just Israel who saw it. The surrounding nations trembled. Jericho was heavily fortified. It wasn't supposed to fall. But when God wants the world to know he's with you, he'll collapse things that looked permanent. Just like with Joshua, he wants your victory to preach. So, what kind of man was Joshua? He didn't need to win to obey. He let God lead every step. He protected the faithful, even outsiders like Rahab. He waited, he listened, he trusted. He didn't care if the plan looked crazy. If it was from God, he followed it. After the miraculous fall of Jericho, Israel was confident they were ready to move forward and conquer more land. But something unexpected happened. They lost their next battle at Ai. And it wasn't because the enemy was stronger. It was because of a hidden sin in the camp. One man, Achan, took something God said not to take. He hid it in his tent, thinking no one would notice. But you can't win public battles when you're hiding private disobedience. Joshua was devastated. He tore his clothes and cried out to God, asking why they had lost, and God responded with clarity. You cannot stand against your enemies until you remove it. Joshua chapter 7, verse 13. God didn't ignore the disobedience. He pointed straight to the issue. There's something buried that needs to be removed. And this is where many of us get stuck. Not because the calling isn't real, but because the compromise is still hidden. Hidden gold. What you tolerate in private will show up in public. Sometimes your biggest battles aren't outside of you. They're in the things you refuse to surrender. Achan didn't fall on the battlefield. He fell in secret in the shadows when no one was watching. What are you still tolerating? Let's get honest. Here's what many people bury justly or hold on to, even while asking God to bless their public walk. Broken relationships that God told you to walk away from, but loneliness makes you keep checking back in. People pleasing that keeps you walking on eggshells instead of obeying God's direction. Bitterness and offense hidden behind a smile, but still replaying that pain in your heart. Addictions, scrolling, substance, food, shopping that you mask as coping. Idolatry, whether it's your platform, appearance, income, or followers. Manifestation, astrology, or crystals, dabbling in what God already warned against. Toxic relationships that you're praying about when God has already shown you they're not from Him. Serving God publicly while compromising boundaries privately. Fear of lack, where you grip your resources tighter than you trust God's provision. Double lives, where you know what's right but choose what's easy. What you refuse to remove will eventually remove you from the promise. Israel couldn't win at Ai until they dealt with what was in the camp. You can't expect God's blessing while protecting the very thing He told you to lay down. Then and now. Then, Achan's compromise caused an entire nation to stumble. The hidden sin cost lives. Now, we think our compromises are harmless because they're private, but spiritual stagnation, burnout, and disconnection from God are often rooted in the very things we're refusing to surrender. Let this be a wake-up call. What you bury in secret, God sees. And what you bring into the light, God heals. And what you give up, He replaces with something better. Joshua didn't defend Achan. He didn't try to justify it. He didn't delay. He removed the compromise and God's presence returned. And just like that, Israel won at Ai once the sin was gone. Ask yourself, is there anything I'm hiding that I've convinced myself is harmless? Have I been asking God for blessings while protecting something He told me to destroy? What would my victories look like if I gave God full access to every area? Joshua wasn't just a fighter, he was a faithful finisher. After decades of battles, obedience, and leading a nation who had once wandered 40 years, Joshua remained fully committed to completing what God called him to do. In the middle of Joshua's relentless obedience, there was a moment so bold, only a man who truly walked with God can dare to ask it. When 5 kings rose up against Gideon, a city Israel had vowed to protect, Joshua led Israel into battle. And God said, Do not be afraid of them. I have given them into your hand. Joshua chapter 10, verse 8. But as the enemies fled, Joshua knew daylight was running out and the battle wasn't over. So he prayed the impossible. Sun, stand still over Gibeon, and you moon over the valley of Achan. Joshua chapter 10, verse 12. And it did. The sun stopped in the middle of the sky and delayed going down about a full day. Joshua chapter 10, verse 13. This was not just a miracle of nature, it was a miracle of faith. Hidden gold. Joshua didn't pray for more strength. He prayed for more time to finish what God started. When you're walking in God's will, the laws of heaven and earth will bend before the assignment He's called you to finish. This wasn't about Joshua's strength. It was about God showing His glory through Joshua's obedience. Then and now. Joshua spoke directly to the sun and moon, believing God would honor it. You may not need the sun to stand still, but do you have faith to speak to a situation that looks impossible and believe God will move? Then God prolonged the day so the enemy couldn't escape. Now, God still knows how to give you time to finish what He's called you to, even if it looks like you're running out of it. He led Israel to conquer 31 kings. Joshua chapter 12. He divided the promised land among the 12 tribes. Joshua chapter 13 through 21. Not for his own glory, but so every tribe could walk in the promise God gave Abraham centuries before. He also helped establish cities for the Levites and ensured everyone had what was appointed to them. A picture of order, obedience, and legacy. But perhaps one of the most profound moments of this season was when God instructed Joshua to set up 6 cities of refuge, a legal and spiritual system of mercy, rooted in justice and redemption. In Joshua chapter 20, God commands Joshua to establish 6 cities across the land as places of refuge for anyone who killed another person unintentionally. Let's break this down. What they were for: a place where someone who killed accidentally, manslaughter, could flee and not be executed immediately. The person would remain safe until they stood trial. If found innocent, they could remain protected there until the death of the high priest, after which they could return home. No blood revenge could be taken if they were inside the city. What this reveals about God. Even in the Old Testament, which many think is about law and wrath, we see God making room for mercy, safety, and justice. These cities were God's idea, not man's. He made a way for even the worst accident not to lead to permanent condemnation. Now, Jesus is our city of refuge. Each city name reflected an aspect of Christ. The first city, Kadesh, means sanctuary. Jesus is our set apart holiness and safe place. Shechem means shoulder. He carries our burdens on his shoulder. Hebron means fellowship. Through Christ we have relationship with God. Bezer means fortress. The Lord is our strong tower and place of protection. Ramoth means exalted. Jesus is seated at the right hand of the Father. Golan means joy in him. There is fullness of joy and redemption. When we sin, fall, or even hurt others unintentionally, we now run to Jesus, not to be condemned, but to be restored. His blood doesn't just cover us temporarily, it cleanses and declares us free. Then and now, Joshua built physical cities of refuge for the innocent to flee. The walls of the city protected them from harm. Now, Jesus became our refuge once and for all, for the guilty and the innocent, and now Jesus covers us from harm. The people had to stay in the city until the high priest died. Now, our high priest already died and rose, so we can live in freedom today. Then Joshua gave the people land, safety, and rest. Now, Jesus gives us purpose, identity, and eternal rest in Him. Hidden gold. You don't have to defend yourself when you run to God. Just like the city of refuge provided safety, God covers you even while the world may accuse. God has always made room for mercy, even under the law. Don't let people convince you God was only harsh in the Old Testament. Mercy has always been in His nature. Jesus fulfills everything the Old Covenant hinted at. The cities of refuge were not just places. They were prophetic pictures of the gospel to come. Every detail of God's plan points to Jesus. Even city names, God never wastes a single word in Scripture. Everything He builds is intentional and prophetic. Joshua lived to be 110 years old, fighting for the people of Israel until the end. He wasn't just known for military victory. He was known for faithful stewardship, justice, and making room for mercy. He didn't just conquer land. He organized it and made sure future generations had what they needed to live out God's promises. He wasn't perfect, but his legacy was one of courage, trust, order, and mercy, all rooted in obedience to God. Joshua was a powerful, God-appointed leader, but he was still human. Like the others before him, he had moments of failure. But even in those moments, God's character of mercy, correction, and guidance was revealed. Mistake number 1. The Gibeonites' deception. Joshua chapter 9. Joshua and the leaders of Israel made a treaty with the Gibeonites, a nearby enemy nation, pretending to be from far away. Why did this happen? Because they didn't ask the Lord first. So the men of Israel took some of their provision, but did not ask counsel from the Lord. Joshua chapter 9, verse 14. The result: they entered into a covenant with the nation they were meant to conquer. Once the truth came out, Joshua honored his word, but had to make the best of a mistake that could have been avoided. Hidden gold. Sometimes our biggest mistakes come not from rebellion, but from not pausing to pray. Even good leaders make poor decisions when they rely on instant over intimacy with God. But God can still work through our missteps when we repent and commit to doing it right after. Mistake number 2, tolerating hidden sin. Achan's disobedience, Joshua chapter 7. After the great victory at Jericho, Israel was unexpectedly defeated at Ai. Why? Because of one man's secret sin. Achan had stolen items that God had declared off limits. Even though Joshua didn't personally sin, he failed to seek God before going to battle, and the whole nation suffered loss because sin was hidden among them. Only after Joshua cried out to God did the Lord reveal the issue. Israel has sinned, therefore they cannot stand before their enemies. Joshua chapter 7, verse 11 through 12. When Joshua dealt with Achan's sins, God's favor returned, and they were victorious. Hidden gold. Sin tolerated in private leads to defeat in public. We cannot walk in victory if we're hiding what God told us to surrender. Like Joshua, we must be willing to search our camp, search our hearts, and remove anything not pleasing to God. Then Joshua made treaties and charged into battles without prayer and suffered loss. Now, we also make decisions without seeking God and wonder why things fall apart. God invites us into constant communion, not occasional discussion. Then, Achan's hidden sin brought down an entire nation's success. Now, when we tolerate sin in our lives, even quietly, we invite unnecessary warfare and confusion, but when we repent, God restores. Then, Joshua had to confront people he loved to restore order. Now, God may call us to confront hard truths in ourselves and in others so that freedom and victory can flow again. God's faithfulness in every step. Despite the mistakes, God never abandoned Joshua. He corrected him, but never left him. He guided him, fought for him, and fulfilled every promise. Not one of the Lord's good promises to Israel failed. Every one was fulfilled. Joshua chapter 21, verse 45. Even in error, God stayed faithful, present, and victorious through Joshua's life. Hidden gold. God doesn't expect perfection. He expects obedience. He'll correct you, but he won't cancel you. He'll finish what he starts, even when we stumble in the middle. As Joshua neared the end of his life, he stood before the people, the same people he fought for, led, and wept over. He had seen miracles, battles, betrayals, and victories. And now, after fighting for Israel for over 80 years, It was time for him to pass the baton, but not without one final plea. Now fear the Lord and serve him with all faithfulness. Throw away the gods your ancestors worshipped and serve the Lord. Joshua chapter 24, verse 14. Joshua wasn't just asking them to believe in God. He was calling them to choose him daily. But if your serving the Lord seems undesirable to you, then choose for yourself this day whom you will serve. But as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. Joshua chapter 24, verse 15. This wasn't a soft farewell. This was a bold reminder. You cannot serve two masters. You cannot live divided. Choose whom you will serve. Joshua had the people renew their covenant with the Lord. And just like before, he set up a large stone under the oak near the holy place. Why? This stone will be a witness against us. It was heard all the words the Lord has said to us. It will be a witness against you if you are untrue to your God. Joshua chapter 24, verse 27. This stone wasn't just decoration. It was a symbol of accountability. Hidden gold. Sometimes God leaves reminders in our lives to call us back when we forget. People, journals, songs, scriptures, scars, things that testify to what he said and done. These are your stones. When doubt creeps in, look back and remember. Then and now, Joshua asked Israel to put away their idols and serve the Lord alone. Now, God is asking the same of us. You can't serve God in your image, God in your fears, God in your relationship. Choose whom you will serve. Then Joshua declared, "As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord." Now, you have the same power to draw a line in the sand for your home. Even if you're the only one, your surrender creates legacy. And then, a stone was left as a witness. Now, your obedience today can be the living stone that helps others remember God's faithfulness tomorrow. As we close the story of Joshua, we don't just see a warrior, we see a servant who finished strong. He didn't just cross the Jordan. He didn't just conquer Jericho. He conquered compromise. He didn't just lead with strength. He led with integrity, courage, and complete reliance on the God who promised to be with him. Not one of the Lord's good promises to Israel failed. Every one was fulfilled. Joshua chapter 21, verse 45. May we live in such a way that the legacy of our obedience speaks even after we're gone. And may we live like Joshua, boldly declare, "As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord."